If I Had Said Yes is a heartfelt audio drama story about missed chances, unspoken words, and the quiet ache of loneliness. Sometimes, silence changes everything. This bedtime story for grown-ups blends radio drama, soft background music, and calming narration to help you reflect and unwind. Perfect for your nightly ritual. It's a gentle escape for those facing anxiety, insomnia, or just looking to fall asleep fast. With soothing piano songs and peaceful tones, this is more than a story. It's sleep meditation and emotional balance in audio form. Press play, relax, and breathe. If I had said yes, there are moments in life when we say nothing, and that silence changes everything. Yoonji was 34 years old, a quiet librarian at a peaceful school on the outskirts of Seoul. Every morning at exactly 7:30 a.m., she would open the tall wooden doors of the library and be welcomed by the sweet scent of old paper and freshly brewed coffee. Inside, everything looked calm. The tall bookshelves, the quiet aisles, the soft linen curtains gently swaying by the window. But inside her, Yoonji was at war. She told everyone she was fine. She smiled with her eyes when students asked where the Korean poetry section was. She remembered birthdays, exam dates, authors' names, but deep down, there was a name she could never forget: Jae-hyun. She hadn't spoken about him in years, not to her best friend, not even to her own thoughts, but he was there. In everything, in the soft music playing as she organized the shelves, in the spring rain falling just like it had that one afternoon, in the scent of a navy sweater she still kept, even though she told herself it was just out of habit. For years, Eunji tried to convince herself that what they had wasn't that important. After all, how many people pass through our lives and simply fade? How many loves come and go, leaving barely a trace? But Jae-hyun, he didn't fade. He stayed. Even after he left. In college, he was her closest friend, Jae-hyun. They shared the same Korean literature classes, sat side by side in the cafeteria, and knew exactly how the other liked their coffee. They spent lazy afternoons together in the library, trading book quotes, sighing, over stories that ended with reunions and hand-holding in the rain. They shared everything except courage. Between them, there was always something. There had always been. Silent glances that said more than any love poem, shy, lingering smiles, and a kind of tenderness only someone truly in love can offer. Quietly, wordlessly, one day he almost took her hand. Yoonji pulled away. She felt the warmth of his fingers nearing hers, the sudden shiver, but she moved her arm as if distracted, pretending not to notice. Her heart wanted it, but fear moved faster than love. Another day he almost kissed her. They were alone, laughing at some silly memory on campus. Jae-hyun stopped laughing first. He looked into her eyes, leaned in. Yoonji, nervous, laughed again, but this time like someone who didn't understand. And so, through almost touchings and words never spoken, he understood. She doesn't want this, he thought. So he left, and she stayed. The library where Eunji worked wasn't big, but it had a soul. It was the kind of place where silence didn't feel uncomfortable. It felt like a warm embrace. The walls were lined with light wooden shelves. Narrow ladders reached the higher books, and tall windows let in the soft morning sun like a blessing on every page. There, Yoonji preserved the school's memories. She catalogued books, restored old covers, and wrapped new ones with the same care a mother would use to tuck in a child. Everyone knew her as calm, serene, almost invisible, yet completely irreplaceable. Between a 19th century poetry book and a worn-out school atlas, Yoonji carried heavy boxes, organized donations, and tended the entire collection all by herself. She was dedicated, gentle, and completely exhausted, but no one seemed to notice. That Tuesday, the air in Seoul was heavy, and the library's ventilation couldn't keep up. Yoonji had spent the entire day reorganizing an old cabinet that hadn't been touched in years. Stacks of cardboard boxes, dust on her fingers, and memories in her eyes. Inside one box, she found old school photos, forgotten records, even love notes tucked between the pages. The past smiled at her, and it weighed her down. It was nearly 6 in the evening when she stood up slowly, arms wrapped around a large box, trying to balance it on top of the others. And then it happened. First, the dizziness. A strange, soft wobble, like the floor had turned to water. Then, the sounds began to fade. The books, the shelves, the scent of fresh glue used to cover paperbacks, all of it drifted away. She reached out, trying to steady herself on the edge of a shelf, but her hands missed, and Yoonji fell, quietly, just like she had lived. The moment Yoonji collapsed on the library floor, the world around her fell silent, but inside her something awakened. In the darkness of her faint, Yoonji dreamed. But it wasn't an ordinary dream, not a vague daydream or a blur of images. It was vivid, alive, as if her soul had hit play on an old film she had sworn she'd forgotten. The scenes moved fast, but every detail was clear, bright with color, full of scents, sounds, and emotions that had been buried beneath years of silence. There, she was 24 years old, wearing a gray wool coat, her hair loose, her eyes sparkling. Even if she didn't know it at the time, she was at the campus cafe, the one where they used to meet between classes. And there he was, Jae-hyun, laughing in front of her with that easy smile that made everything feel light, even when he carried the weight of feelings he never dared to speak aloud. And this time, Yoonji didn't look away, she didn't pretend, she didn't run. In the dream, she allowed herself to see what she never had the courage to face, the feelings, the missed chances, the questions left unasked, the answers that never came. She floated through the memories like someone watching her own life, but from the outside, and she saw the invitation to travel. He had asked her on an ordinary day, his voice gentle, saying, "It would be nice to have you there." She smiled, but declined, mumbling something about exams and responsibilities. The handwritten love letter, pages filled with hesitations. He never gave it to her. But in the dream, she saw him reading it alone in his dorm, then tearing it up slowly and keeping the pieces in a box. And finally, the last message, typed simple, "Are you okay?" She never answered. In that dream, That felt more like a quiet crossing through what might have been. Yoonji wept, softly, as if afraid to wake the past. She cried, not just out of longing, but out of recognition, as if she were finally able to tell herself, "I loved him, even if I never said it out loud." When the body goes quiet, the soul begins to speak. And in that dream, Yoonji heard everything she had tried to silence for an entire decade. For the first time, she didn't run. She saw, she felt, and she wept. The lights were dim, a white ceiling above her, the sound of slow, steady breathing around. She was in the school infirmary. A light blanket covered her body. A cup of warm tea rested quietly on the table beside her, and next to her, the nurse, in a gentle voice, and said, "It was just a fainting spell, Yoonji. You just need a little rest." Yoonji smiled softly, but inside, she knew. It wasn't just a faint. It was a reunion with who she used to be, with the 24-year-old girl who once laughed too loudly at Jae-hyun's jokes, with the girl who got scared, who swallowed words begging to be spoken, who pushed feelings aside with the excuse of being too busy. And maybe it was also a meeting with who she could still become, a woman who knew the taste of longing and was now ready to taste the courage she had once refused. When she arrived at her apartment that night, everything looked the same. But she wasn't. She dropped her bag on the couch, turned on a warm light in the corner of the room, and sat down in front of her laptop. Jae-hyun's last email was still there, open. She read every word, again and again, and then without hesitation she replied, "I never said anything, and that silence has followed me all these years. But today I dreamed of you, and I woke up knowing there's still time." She hit send, no rewriting, no second guessing, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she fell asleep with a quiet heart. It wasn't just her body that collapsed in that library. It was a piece of her past, laid to rest with care. And when she woke, Yoonji discovered something simple, something true. Sometimes courage lives in the quietest kind of beginning. The next morning, Yoonji woke up different. Not just with a lighter body, but with a lighter heart, as if something inside her had finally understood. Some stories aren't meant to end. They just need a little courage to begin again. Guided by an invisible pull, she slipped on her favorite coat, tied her hair up simply, and walked. No rush, no plan. Her steps led her to the old campus cafe, the one that still stood, even with new furniture and unfamiliar music playing softly in the background, and there, between students laughing over textbooks and the warm scent of freshly brewed coffee, he was there, Jae-hyun, a little older now, his hair shorter, a hint of stubble on his face, but his eyes, they were the same. The same eyes that once made her smile quietly years ago. The same eyes that now lit up the moment they saw her. He looked at her like someone seeing a ghost or a dream come to life. And then he smiled, a gentle, knowing smile, like waking up from a memory only to find it sitting right in front of you. "Yoonji?" He spoke her name softly, like saying it too loud might scare the moment away. She smiled back, with the sweetness she'd carried in her soul all those years. Jae-hyun. Time paused. The noise around them faded. There was only the two of them and a silence that said everything. Then his voice, thick with feeling, broke the moment. I dreamed of you last night. We were in college, and this time you looked at me differently, like you'd chosen me back then. Her breath caught, her throat tightened, but this time, she wasn't afraid. She stepped closer, reached for the coffee he silently offered, sat beside him, and with tears shimmering gently in her eyes, she whispered, "Maybe time was just waiting for us to be ready." Sometimes life offers a second chance, and when it comes, it doesn't sound like trumpets or grand declarations. It sounds like warm coffee and old smile, and two hearts that still know how to find each other. The cafe slowly emptied as the day turned to dusk, but they stayed, talking like old friends who had found each other again, and like two hearts that had never truly let go. Yoon-ji told him everything about the fainting, the dream, the memories, the email she never sent, the years his name echoed softly between the shelves of her library, tucked quietly between one book and the next. Jae-hyun listened in silence, and slowly, his eyes too filled with tears, because deep inside he'd also kept a long-held what-if. Then he took her hand, this time with certainty. Yoon-ji didn't pull away, she simply held on tighter. They didn't speak of promises or plans for the future. But in that moment, they were finally in the same time, the same place, feeling the same thing. In life, we don't always get the chance to go back. The seasons change, people move on, paths drift apart, but sometimes a dream is all it takes to return, to remember, to forgive yourself, and to make peace with everything that was left between the heart and the silence. Yoon-ji learned that love isn't always about speed or certainty. It's about presence. Even after missed chances, even when it feels like too much time has passed. And that night, as they said goodbye with a long, memory-filled embrace, she whispered softly, her voice trembling with emotion, "Yes, now I choose you." Because some stories don't end, they're just waiting for the right moment to begin again.